So we have the Belt and Road Forum later this year. So the 2023 Belt and Road Forum, and that's going to be interesting in terms of the sort of directions where the Belt and Road is heading. And this is not just regarding Africa, but it's more broadly around the initiative itself. So we're going to see whether, there's any change in direction in terms of, sort of climate impacts or social impacts, or whether there's any, steering in terms of how our Chinese companies going to, sort of implement that, and so on and so forth. So there's one that's sort of global. The other thing that's going to be interesting is the Forum on China-Africa Cooperation. So that's going to be next year, I believe. And that's sort of like the place in which commitments about Chinese support to Africa happen and take place, or Chinese directions towards Africa take place. So this is going to be, it should be next year. And it should, help set the new direction. It should tell us, commitments, how much China sort of pledges towards African countries in terms of lending, in terms of investment, and so on and so forth, but also like thematically, which areas will be the areas of focus. And
if you would be forced to speculate, what do you expect?
I think it's interesting that we are seeing, so the engagement, as we've talked about, is very much based on the sort of economic and business angles, right? But China also is a development and an aid player. They have their own development agency. They provide grants. They provide, aid, and so on and so forth, even though it's slightly different than what, other countries do. And they've recently launched the Global Development Initiative that has a lot more of a developmental focus. So it's interesting to consider, how these sort of things will interact with each other. The development angle, the development aspect with the Belt and Road or with the FOCAC, how they will be, mentioned, what the division of labor will be, if any, whether the GDI, the Global Development Initiative, will continue to maintain this sort of more development-oriented focus, and the FOCAC will be more generic, or whether there will be, sort of a mix in the way, the Chinese players basically deploy these instruments.